Hello and welcome to BioRules video lessons. Today we are going to be carrying on talking about the Filicinophytes or the Pteridophytes, which are the ferns with leaves with the shape of wings. So, if we see the cladogram of the land plants, of course we have an ancestor here that were green algae that gave rise to all the four green plants. They are the land plants, and all the land plants, what they have different from the green algae is that they have organized tissues. So what does that mean again? It means that the green algae, when they have many cells together making a bigger thing, they are a bunch of cells living together. They are like clones living in a neighborhood. But now the land plants having organized tissues means that they have different cells for different functions. They are going to have cells that are going to be making the rhizoids. They are going to be having cells that will make the leaflets. They are going to have cells that are going to be making the archegonia, with the oosphere, the antheridia, and the enterozoids. So you have organized tissues. All the land plants now are going to have organized tissues. So what's new here? What make those new groups of plants to be now different? What will be new here, the different stuff, is going to be vascularization. So now the pteridophytes, the ferns and the relatives, they are going to be having vascularization, as well as all the other plants like the cone-bearing plants, the coniferophytes, and the flowering plants, the angiospermatophytes. All of them from now on, they are going to be having vascularization. So let's talk about this vascularization. So what? The pteridophytes, they are vascularized. They are the first land plants that are vascularized. And what would be the consequence of that? So the consequence of that is that water can be taken further. So instead of taking water only by diffusion, and don't get me wrong, every living thing is going to be doing diffusion. Even if they are vascularized, they are going to be doing diffusion to spread water and chemicals around. The pteridophytes now, they have water vessels. They have little veins or arteries that are going to be carrying water around, and therefore the water can be taken further. The water can move much more far away with this process. So as a consequence, now these plants can grow larger. Not all ferns grow very large. There are ferns that are a few centimeters high, but there are ferns that can grow very tall. There are ferns that reach 10, 15, 20 meters tall. Once upon a time, by the dinosaurs' time, there were full forests of 20, 25, 30 meters tall ferns living in the tropics. So they can get very big. Another consequence that the water being transported more efficiently is that then less water can reach many different places in the plant, so the plant is less dependent on water. So now the plant may grow a little bit more further away from water. Okay? It is still common for ferns to be found in wet place, or not wet, but humid place like tropical rainforests. But now they can grow not close to a river, not only in the shaded side of the tree. They can grow practically everywhere in a rainforest, or sometimes even in other kind of environments. Okay, they don't need to be dumping water to be growing. Usually bryophytes, they need to be dumping water in order to be growing. Of course, they can be dry for part of the year, but in order to be growing, they need to be dumping water, so everywhere in the plant gets water. Now, this group of plants, they can get water from the soil, so they can live with much less water. Okay? However, the male gamete, the enterozoid, is still flagellated. So it's flagellated as it was in the bryophytes. So what? That these plants still require much water for sexual reproduction. They don't need water to be growing, so they can grow in a little bit drier places, but at least in the moment that they are going to be doing sexual reproduction, that their Gametophytes are going to be doing the cross-fertilization. The Antherozoids will need to swim through the oospheres, so therefore they are going to be needing much water for sexual reproduction. And finally, this is something that's striking from the life cycle. The sporophyte, the diploid stage of life, is now the main life stage. And this is going to be a rule for every single plant from now on. Up to the bryophytes, the gametophyte is the main life stage. Now, in the pteridophytes and on, the sporophyte is going to be the main life stage. So if you see a fern, that big fern growing over there, that's a sporophyte. If you see a pine tree, that's a sporophyte. If you see a giant sequoia, that's going to be the sporophyte. If you see a flowering plant, like an oak, that's going to be the sporophytes. Different from the bryophytes, where the little plant that you see there, that one is the gametophytes. And now take your time to do a little quiz to see how well I've learned this lesson. I see you in the next class. Bye bye.